Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zephyr's Adjusted for Risk podcast from the shores of Lake Tahoe. I am Ryan Nauman, the market strategist at Zephyr. We have another fantastic show lined up for us today. As you all know, marketing is vital for all businesses. It's no different in the financial advisory for financial advisory practices. However, financial advisors, they have to wear many different hats, and including sometimes the marketing hat along with all those others. Well, I have the perfect guest on to talk all things marketing and the different strategies financial advisors can consider when creating a marketing plan. But first, today's episode is sponsored by the award winning Zephyr, which helps financial professionals make more informed investment decisions. I'd like to give a very warm welcome to Matt Seitz. Matt is the Chief Marketing Officer and partner at C2P. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's such an honor to have you on. Can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and C2P?
Yeah, of course. First, thank you again for having me, Ryan. Really looking forward to our discussion today. At C2P, we are an RIA that's powered by an investment, insurance, and training platforms. And our mission here really is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so that families can achieve true prosperity. So we always try and keep that end game of mind of why we're really here, keeping that client in mind. And my role here is kind of unique, actually. So as you mentioned, Chief Marketing Officer. I oversee marketing at C2P, but by design, I also oversee marketing for our owner has his own JL Smith holistic wealth management firm, and I oversee marketing there as well. So that when I'm working with advisors in our network and sharing thought leadership in communities like this, it's not just me telling people what to do. I'm doing this firsthand. So it's kind of by design of what have we seen that's working, what's not working, since a lot of times that's when you learn your best lessons of what didn't work. And then what did we learn from it and what can we share and kind of grow as a community? We're kind of that the rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing. So the more that we can try out and share from a sales and marketing standpoint, it's going to help our industry as a whole.
Fantastic, man. I love it. That's why I'm excited to have this conversation because you are actually doing it. Not only are you talking about it, helping other firms, but you have your feet on the ground, actually working with an RIA and implementing some of the things that you talk about. So it's great. When I started in the industry, gosh, over 20 years ago, I'm aging myself here. A lot of the marketing consisted of hosting big events or asking for client referrals. Well, that has changed some. Let's just talk about the marketing within financial services and how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, and you're right. That's how it was, and to some degree, obviously, there's still a big space for that in here. It's kind of more evolved from all of the new tools that are available, especially
Mhm.
on the digital side, like we're going to discuss today. Times and technology evolved, and as we all know, like it or hate it, COVID sped that up pretty quickly. A handful of years ago, and now you're seeing a lot of those digital efforts are part of the marketing plan. They have to be. It makes lives easier in terms of getting those communications out to your clients and prospects, engaging them, uh, searching for new prospects in terms of advertising and social media engagement. And probably the biggest thing is ease of tracking results. When things are digital and you have all those, it's a lot easier to pull reports and see what's working and not working. Um, but just the different avenues that are available now for engaging your prospects where they are. And I know we're going to talk about that, like knowing who your audience is and going after them, but being able to work those tools into your mix creates such a powerful message, marketing and sales mix overall. And that's why I'm very big on kind of tying the marketing and sales together. A lot of times those are separate, but they got to be in conjunction with one another. And I think the final piece of that evolution, I guess it's not final, it's never final when you're talking about this, but the latest, like the last 12 to 18 months, especially as we've seen AI coming on so strong in this industry, and the way it's impacting the marketing, especially, is fascinating. In my opinion, there's still so much to uncover mainly because of the ways that we can use it, but also compliance. We're a heavily regulated industry, and so it's easy to say, "Hey, we have these new tools. Let's go jump in and use them." But I encourage anyone listen. Make sure that don't work against compliance on this. Work with them to make sure that you can use these tools, and don't push back, but kind of work hand in hand with them. Because if you're fighting against it, like I would encourage everyone, like especially if you are a smaller shop, look at these AI technologies available as a new team member that you have.
Mm.
I mean, you can train these and utilize them and work with them. So I think that that's kind of that latest piece. As I said, final is probably not the right word, but the latest piece of the digital marketing mix there.
That is really good point. It's like, think of AI. AI, we talk about all the time here at Zephyr too. And like, how do you implement being a partner with AI? As in that, I love that you brought that up. And that's a great way of thinking about it. And you talked about ease. Do you think, with social media and digital, it does make it a little bit easier than planning basically a wedding for a huge event or
Right.
something like that. But do you think financial advisors are accepting it and they're open to this change of digital, or are they still back in their old ways?
I think it depends on the advisor. And I think it's which digital channels too. There's certain ones that, and there's a lot of softwares and companies out there, and a lot that work with, have a marketing person or work with an agency that help them integrate that and make that part of their mix. Because the more that you can templatize too, and that's where I mentioned the automation earlier, those kind of things you can build out, and through your sales process you can have these communications that automatically go out in terms of automated emails and text
Mhm.
messages and things that might take a little time to set up and learn, but it's going to make their life easier down the line. And sometimes if they don't know, that's where it is okay to go and hire either a marketing firm or a freelancer that can help set that up, because sometimes it's who not how. It might take them several hours to figure something out, where you hire someone that can do that with you a little quicker and get you on track so that you can focus on being an advisor, they can focus on being your marketing slash salesperson.
Fantastic. It's about efficiencies, right? We talk about it all the time too. It's like, how can you make your practice efficient?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you started with like those traditional things, like some of those I would even argue are starting to make that comeback or have made it. Like think about direct mail. I mean, email became so easy to send and free to a sense. I know sometimes there's software costs and things like that, but I mean, how many direct mail pieces do people get in the mail every day versus how many emails and text messages do you get?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't, think of that as like a one or the other. It's like, what's the right mix for your firm, for your clients and prospects?
Interesting. And a lot of that is technology driven too, like you said. And it like we talk, financial advisors have a lot on their plate. You mentioned compliance and stuff like that. You got to make it efficient and see where, whether it's hiring or technology or so on. What are some of the primary considerations financial advisors should make when creating a marketing plan?
So I like this one. I like answering this one. So thank you for kind of teeing this up for me. Is a lot of the advisors I work with, they buy into our culture here of the holistic financial plan. So creating a
Mhm.
plan that identifies and addresses all aspects of their client's retirement future, their financial future. I look at it like that. Like I want them to build a holistic marketing plan. So just like they're going to diversify and not put all their eggs in one basket from an investment standpoint, as you know very well, I don't want to do that on the marketing side either. I don't want them to become too reliant on one channel. I mean, we mentioned COVID earlier. Anyone that was relying on in-person workshops had to figure out a new model pretty quickly. And so kind of having the right mix there, um, it it's the right mix not only of the avenues there, but also just like you'd have short-term and long-term investment strategies. It's the same from a marketing standpoint. There's a lot that might say that I've worked with personally to say, hey, I know I need to lay the groundwork for things down the line. I want like kind of a self-sustaining marketing model here, but I need some results in the now. And so there might be things like a workshop that have kind of a quicker turnaround and a quicker ROI versus getting into things like, and I'll try not to get too technical, but search engine optimization. I'm sure everyone's heard of that, and kind of the content funnels that they try to build. Those are things that you're putting in the work now, putting that content on your site, optimizing your website for the payoff down the line. That can take time to do that and creating content, putting it on your site. But we've seen that firsthand. I mean, at JL Smith, I mentioned our site there. We put a lot of effort into SEO 5 years ago, and now we're getting 5 to 10 leads per week just from people that come across our site, fill out a form, and say, "Hey, I want to have a meeting." And those are great. And then we always say like, "Oh, those are the great free leads we got this week." Well, they weren't free. We just
Yeah.
put in the effort. Nothing's ever free from from a cost or a time standpoint, but it's from that work that was put in down the line. So that's why I said I kind of like that analogy of the holistic marketing plan, because I want advisors to kind of equate that to their world of, this is how we're viewing it, to make sure you have the payoff, all the way into the future with that plan.
I love that example of, a lot of financial advisors, they might understand the investment management piece more, and they know portfolio construction. Like you said, there's long-term investment, short-term investment, short-term investments for your cash needs, more liquidity. And I love that example. Same with marketing. You've got your longer term marketing strategies, such as your website,
Mhm.
um, and then your shorter term that might help today. Um, are there, you know, we talked about short and long term marketing approaches. What's the best marketing approach for a specific financial advisory practice? Is there one? You talked about being diversified. So maybe there isn't a specific one for a specific practice.
Yeah, and you're right. There isn't necessarily the perfect approach in terms of strategy. Otherwise, we'd all do it, and I'd be working with everyone on this. But the one commonality, and it's going to seem common sense, but sometimes it's almost you get too close to it. Is just starting with understanding your target
Mm.
audience. And I know that's kind of like the marketing 101, but sometimes it's hard. You don't want to limit yourself in who you can work with. So many advisors say, "Hey, I want to work with people that are within driving distance, they're a retiree, and they have a 500,000 of assets." And it's like, that's fine. You can work with that, but who's your target audience? Because that's another thing that I think has been eye-opening to some advisors speak to, is there's a difference between who your target audience is and your minimum audience.
Okay.
You might have a firm minimum that you're willing to work with, but who's the target? Who are you going and willing to spend marketing and ad dollars on? Who are you going to walk down the hall and high five over when you get them in as a client? So you might have a 500,000 is your minimum to work with your firm, but your target is like, "Hey, I want to work with doctors that have 2 million investable assets that are in these 3 communities in my region." Because the more niche you can get with this, the more targeted you can be and efficient with your ad dollars and your communications in general. And a lot have probably heard it. I didn't coin it, but I use it a lot. The riches are in the niches. And the more narrowed down you get, and we've seen this. I know, Ryan, we were discussing this beforehand, that there's a lot of very effective advisors that have done this with going after federal employees only, or doctors, or focusing on, if it's a big enough company, you could focus on going in after one company and working on the individuals there and generating a referral or a center of influence network. So when you're able to narrow down into that niche and then become kind of the go-to person or go-to expert, it not only kind of builds your reputation within that industry, but it can also help a lot from a referral standpoint, as those within that network are talking about you of like, "Hey, this particular advisor understands our situation. They
Hmm.
focus on us." And it doesn't mean, like I said earlier, it doesn't mean you can't work with anyone outside of that, but making it clear that that's your specialty.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read a lot of articles on that, Matt, about how you'll be a more successful advisor and you'll be happier if you're working with clients that are like you, or
Mhm.
that maybe have the same interests as you, and you'll just be at, maybe you don't have as many clients, but it brings you maybe more joy when you're talking to them. I know you mentioned, obviously every practice is different, but in your experience, do you think it's a better marketing strategy to be more specific in a niche marketing, or do you casting a wider net?
Um, it really does come down to that advisor or office's strategy. But I've seen so much success in those advisors that have been able to get into the niches because of those opportunities that it opens up. Because then you can start to get into associations that are related to
Mhm.
that, and publications, awards. I know we talk about PR. Um, it it lets you go deeper into that specific audience and that specific niche versus going only so deep on a wide level.
Mhm.
And I think where it really comes in handy is the scales of efficiency with those. And like I said, with the advisors that I've seen either within our network or in other
Mhm.
advisor communities, communications that I participate in, taking that leap and creating that niche is hard to do, of saying I'm only going to do that. um, but it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't mean you have to completely abandon working with anyone else. It's okay, like, start with creating a niche within your audience. Hey, we're going to have this, but we're going to start to build out a specialty working with dentists. And then you're going to create content around that. You're going to, a great place to start, honestly, for anyone's thinking about it, take a look at your existing client base.
Okay.
You might be surprised that you already have niches you maybe didn't realize when you start to look at the data within there.
Interesting. How do you know, it's hard not to talk about millennials and that evolution and the wealth transfer. How does that come into play? Let's say a financial advisor, is used to marketing towards the baby boomers and it works. And they know they have to switch and start getting a little bit younger in their practice. Like, how is it the same marketing tactics? Do they have to change it up a little bit and learn?
Yeah, it's, so much of it, and there might be some different strategy to try, and especially, with a younger audience, maybe getting into different social media channels. I've honestly never been a huge fan of going into channels where you're not going to be active. But if you can learn and adapt to those, and that's where your audience is, then you're going to have a lot of success. But if you're going and joining a channel that you're not going to participate in, and they go to look for you on that channel, it's going to be noticeable that you're not on there. Where I see the big adjustment there is really in the messaging. And that's kind of really the next big key piece of that's why you need to start with understanding who your audience is, because then you need to know, how do I talk to them? What are their pain points that we're addressing? Because if nothing else, I would advocate for anyone listen, like, don't lead with your solutions and benefits. And it's hard to do sometimes because you want to say, well, that's what differentiates me. Well, start by talking about what is the pain points going to resonate with them, because what a baby boomer is going through right now and what's going to be important to them in retirement or planning their financial future, or their legacy planning at this point for their future generations, is going to be much different than how you talk to the millennial or any of the younger generations of what's important to them right now. It's not going to be the same thing. And so, even though your end game, your solution might be the same, how you approach it and how you communicate to them is going to be more important, because that's the first step. If they go to your website or your social media and that message doesn't resonate with them, there's really not a very high chance they're going to click on that and book a call with you or attend one of your events.
Fantastic. Great advice. Let's give an example. Obviously, every financial advisor, they would love to focus on the ultra high net worth segment of prospects, and that's everyone's wish.
We all want to just focus on that area,
Yeah, exactly. Life
right?
would be easy if all we had was ultra high net worth clients, right? What's an example marketing strategy that a financial advisor would use to, market to that segment of prospects?
And I think that's a good example coming off the question you just asked too, because that clientele is likely a little bit different. Of, if they're in that ultra high net worth category, almost regardless of generation, is they want to work with someone that understands them, and they want to work with a best of the best advisor. Like, they want that prestige and credibility that comes with that kind of advisor. So for that advisor, focusing a little more attention, again, it's part of the mix. It's not just this, but focusing a little more on the awards, the PR, and the thought leadership that's going to put them on a little bit of a pedestal.
Yeah.
But from the standpoint of they're going to be recognizable when those prospects or clients are looking them up. So they want to see that advisor has won some national recognition within our industry, or they're being quoted in national media, be it podcast, publication, news outlets, things like that, because those are going to set them apart when those advisors go to show who they are and what differentiates them from other advisors. That they're showing I'm a best of the best one. And I have a good example, and many of us have probably heard of him. Our president here and founding partner, Dave Allison, he, just like our owner, has his own wealth management firm, Allison Wealth Management. And Dave works with the ultra high net worth, and he's done a phenomenal job of sharing thought leadership across the industry. I want to get this to the masses because, like I said, the rising tide lifts all ships, and Dave has helped educate, and he's been recognized with that, with some industry awards and things like that. And that's kind of really helped differentiate Dave and attract that audience that he's looking for.
Interesting. Great example. Yeah. I mean, those ultra high net worth individuals, yeah, they, like you said, they want the best of the best. How do you become a best of the best? You want to be on the Barron's top 100 financial advisor list, right? Or um, all that good stuff. And it's interesting. I think perfect segue about brands, right? you know every business, they need to have a good brand. You need a personal brand, and you just talked about it. If you're marketing to the ultra high net worth individuals, your brand needs to kind of be, you're the best of the best. You're out there in the public, in the media, and that your brand is very public. What's the importance of creating an online brand? And you talked about it earlier too. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty important.
Yeah, because really, the importance of the online brand is whether you like it or not. Sometimes that can be the start of the client experience. Whether it's a new prospect seeing your ad somewhere or a referral from one of your longtime clients, more often than not, the first thing that person might do is they're going to either go check out your website, they're going to go Google you, or they're going to find your social media outlets there. And so making sure that kind of those three in particular, you're putting the right brand and messaging forward that's going to resonate with them. So does your website talk to, and using that same example, the ultra high net worth audience? Is it very generic, or does it show this is who we typically work with?
Mhm.
Um, and I guess even a layer beyond that, is it a brochure website that just kind of has a little bit here, or have you really optimized that to become a lead magnet? That's going to get them to interact with you so that you can create long-term engagement with that prospect. Um, on the Google side, if you go and Google your name, and anybody, if you're going to do this, um, don't just Google your name, because Google's so smart now, it kind of knows your history and your location. Use those incognito windows, put your name in, and it'll pop up with, here's the profile for my business. And if you've never claimed that before, again, like it or not, Google will put one up there for you. And so you can go on there and claim that. It's a relatively easy process. But you can go claim that, make sure it has the right information. You can put pictures of your office, your hours, special events, things like that. So it takes a little bit of time, but not much at all. And there's really not a hard cost there. Um, but that's something that I'd recommend doing if you're not doing it. And then obviously social media, as we mentioned earlier, making sure that you're on the applicable ones for your network.
I love that suggestion about, going to Google and being incognito. And that's a great idea, Matt. You talked about social media earlier too, and it's important. There's probably nothing worse than going to a social media site. Yes, they have Facebook or Twitter or something, and there's just nothing there, right? That, if you're going to do it, right?
Right. Yeah. And there's certain ones that even if you're not going to be active on like a LinkedIn, I hear that from some advisors, and it's like, it's okay. You don't have to be active on there, but let's make sure that you have like a professional profile on there. So when someone looks you up, you have the right information, or your business is on there. Even if you're not going to be active posting, let's at least make sure that it portrays the image that you want to portray for your digital brand.
Fantastic. And you kind of answered this too, and you've talked a lot about digital marketing, digital media. How's it impacting marketing strategies? I mean, should financial advisors focus more of their time on their website, social media? And you talked about it too. It just doesn't want to be a brochure. You want it
Yeah.
interactive. So when somebody goes on there, they know who you are, right? They can figure out who Matt is, not just about your services, but who is Matt? And that's how you connect with them.
Right. And that's what it is. You're right. We've answered a couple times, but it's opened up so many opportunities for engagement. And that's what I like to think about it. It's the communication. How can we educate them to the point where they want to interact with us? And by interacting, it might just be, hey, I want to sign up for your newsletter.
Oh,
Um, I know we all want, leads right away, and we want them to go from filling out a form on our website to right into our sales funnel immediately. Um, but I think part of it that's nice to grasp from advisor is not having the expectation that that prospect is going to want to get married after the first date. They're not going to fill out a form on your website and become a client next week. The clients are doing more and more research. That's part of what's come with this digital age is they have so much information at their fingertips. They're doing a lot of research. They're looking at other advisors out there. And the more thought leadership you can provide on your website and your social media and your email newsletters, things like that, that's what's going to differentiate you. So even if it's the same kind of update, a tax update that's general, and they might get that from several different advisors, what's your spin on it that is going to help you stand out? And creating content doesn't have to be hard. I know it can be scary for those that don't do it a lot, but I mean, financial advisors, I don't need to say it to this crowd, are very smart individuals. You just got to get the content out of there somehow. And whether it's a podcast or a blog or a video, but pulling that out and being able to repurpose that on all these digital outlets, that's how to make their lives easier. Because then it's not, what do I have to create for my website? What do I have to create for my email? What do I have to create for my social? Well, think of that topic that's going to resonate with your audience, create one piece of content and find a way to multiply that in
okay.
those different avenues. So like kind of work smarter, not harder in
Yeah.
terms of what you have from that content.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the website real quick. Maybe let's go, issue, but what are some things on a website that you think maybe financial advisors don't think about posting? Obviously, a lot of them have a blog section or an about me or about the team. Is there maybe something on the website financial advisors don't put on there that maybe they should?
Yeah, one thing we've had a lot of success with several of our advisors have many advisors have adopted using webinars as part of their marketing mix. And even if you haven't, but you do workshops, you can turn those into webinars pretty easy. And putting those on your website, you can gate those on your website now. So when those visitors are coming to your site, you have built-in lead gen that is thought leadership that they're going to be able to consume with that. And uh, I encourage advisors to do that because you've already recorded them, put it on there for them, but then they build those into their nurturing sequences as well. So as they have someone that's coming from a tax webinar or event that they've held, hey, I can send them now something on Social Security, something on Medicare, and being able to repurpose the content. But we see a lot of engagement on our webinars on there. The other thing that we've seen a lot of high engagement on is ebooks or guides, and creating those because those end up being a nice value add. And we mentioned earlier, kind of short and long term strategies from marketing. We get a lot of downloads from those ebooks for the advisors that we work with. But it's one of those low engagement things. So we don't see a lot that download an ebook and say, I want to meet with you.
Yeah.
Because of tracking the results over time, we've seen we do get a lot of consumers that say, I want to download an ebook, learn more about this topic. Then I'm going to sign for your newsletter, learn a little bit more about you. And then they end up attending an event, and that's how we see them converting. So it's kind of, we've seen it as like step 1 of 4 until we get them into the funnel. But using those ebooks, and if you don't have those, again, it doesn't have to be scary. If you have a video that you've done or a webinar or a workshop, have that transcribed. And like I said, there's marketing agencies out there, there's freelancers out there.
Mm.
Frankly, if your transcription is good enough, you might be able to go to somewhere like a Fiverr and get that far enough along where you can create that relatively easy. It really doesn't have to be that hard.
Repurposing, a fantastic idea. Like you said, you had that webinar. Think of all the content. You can break that up into tidbits and information, so you're not reinventing the wheel every week. And again, it goes back to Matt, what you said at the beginning: ease and efficiencies.
And that's what I like to say. I mean, I use that, like, play chess when everyone's playing checkers, like, just play a step ahead of the game.
Yeah, love it. Matt, thank you so much. Such a fun conversation, and you shared such great insight. Fun topic. At the end of the conversation, sometimes if we have time, we've got a few minutes here. Anything fun? It could be marketing, could be financial related that you're up to these days.
Yeah, well, I guess it's start of summer, so there's lots of fun stuff going on, right? Finally got the great weather here out in Cleveland, but a fun one I'm working on, Ryan. I think I mentioned to you earlier. I'm actually working on a book, my first book. So my CEO's written a few and has encouraged me. So I'm kind of in the process now of. I would be lying if I didn't say it was a little scary to jump into it in the deep end. But it's been fun so far, kind of in the early stages, but kind of taking my personal story and why I'm so passionate about helping advisors and taking my skill set of sales and marketing and taking it to advisors to help them help families. And so it's been a fun journey, and I'm really looking forward to that coming to fruition kind of later this year, early next year.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, Matt, on the book. Let me know when it's done. I'd love to get a copy of it. Also, it's interesting you said that you kind of like getting out of your comfort zone writing a book. Well, you
Yes.
can connect that to the financial advisors about creating content. Maybe it's not their comfort zone, but getting out of your box a little bit and doing something different that can be very rewarding. So I love it,
Yeah.
Matt.
Challenge yourself.
Yes, you're exactly right. Where can our audience get more information about C2P?
Yeah, I would say the best place, visiting our website, c2penterprises.com, c2penterprises.com. We're on all the major social media channels I mentioned earlier, so you can check us out there as well. But all of those are linked up through our website.
Matt, fantastic. Thank you again for coming on the show. You shared such great insight. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience will too.
I
Thank you.
appreciate the conversation. Thank
Yep.
you.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Zephyr's Adjusted for Risk podcast. You can watch all of our other podcasts on the Zephyr YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify and iHeartRadio. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your week.